Magick agus filter a isteach is smith drolling and will to gama. Are you well? Welcome back to Magic Monday. It's your friend the Ren back again, and we are doing the topic of ritual. I have some notes so I can keep somewhat organized for you guys. So ritual. Oh, let me get a wee bit of tea here. Oh, we have a double bergamot. Double bergamot. So when I say the word ritual, it evokes some sort of past experience, a memory, imagination. When I say the word ritual, what comes to mind for you? You'd be probably interested to know that even going away from religious or spiritual context, something as simple as greeting somebody with a handshake and saying, nice to meet you, is ritual. That's something that's ritualistic behavior. I mean, yes, ritual can be applied to the neuroscience type world with such disorders as like obsessive compulsive, but we're dismissing that. We're not talking about the behavioral aspects of, conditions. Next time someone, if you're brave enough, next time someone sticks their hands out to shake hands and says, nice to meet you, if you're brave, don't put forward your hand and say, no, thank you. You don't know me. No, thank you. How is it a pleasure to meet me if you don't know me? Just throw them a curveball and watch that there's a break in formality. People don't know how to handle that. Watch their body language. I've done it once. It's brave, but it's strange. So ritual usually has some sort of context given a sequence of events, a proper order to do things. There's often words and gestures, props, objects. There could be costumes, songs and dances. There's all sorts of different types of ritual for different types of things. Even again, like there's non-religious, there's political, there's cap and gown when you graduate. That's ritualistic behavior. It's a ritual. Now, you can take common everyday things like taking a shower and washing the dishes. If you're doing something and you want to create it into a ritual, I mean, I'm a pipe smoker. There is a ritual type of behavior in smoking a pipe. Getting your tobacco, layering the tobacco as you're packing it, and then your first charring light, and there's things like that. You could say there's the Japanese tea rituals, in Okinawa, and I mean, even if you make tea at home, the Irish way, that if you're doing it the right way, that's a ritual. With the boiling of the water and the warming of the pot, you dumping the water out, yeah. So again, there's a set sequence. There's a proper order. Now you could say that the ritual does come from some Sanskrit, and let me refer to my notes real quick. That it deals with a lawful order of what should be normal or proper in the structure of the cosmic events. It deals in all the ancient religions, even in the folk traditions. Ritual has to do with something that is legally bound, and because it comes from, there's some sort of divine order. It's bringing order to chaos. That's a big part of ritual. Some rituals have very fixed texts. You'll find in more formal things like in high magic or even Catholic Mass, there's a fixed set of texts, and they follow a an order of events, kind of like if you're an author writing a book. There's an intro, there's the hook, there's the intro, there's the body, and there's the middle part, and then there's like conclusion or the ending in wrapping it all up. Um, but yeah, there's feasting and there's foods and drinks, and sometimes there's drugs depending on the culture and or the traditions being used. But you have like formal rituals, like what I was just mentioning. You have stuff that's more traditional, and by traditional I mean that this can be non-religious type um, ritual, such as Thanksgiving dinner coming up. There's a protocol. There is the setting of the table. There's the certain specific types of foods that are very common traditionally here in America that people eat. The turkey. It's like, oh, what do you mean you're serving salmon? What do you mean you're serving a ham? Ham's usually for Christmas. So people do have variations depending on what your ethnicity is and this, that, and the other. But generally, there's some sort of protocol, even if it's family to family. There's usually like, this is the expected type of behavior for this event. Maybe it's grandpa, maybe it's dad that cuts the turkey, maybe there's specific, cousins that are normally the ones that pour the drinks, maybe the specific games are played after, often watching football games, sports itself. There's ritualized stuff with sports, big time. So that's like more traditional type of ritual. Traditional can also mean something that's cultural, but they usually add cultural as a specific category aside from traditional. There's performance rituals. Sometimes those would be like dances, some are more theater. There's sacral, and that's like, to make sacred. It's usually more dealing with sacrifices, the gods, folk type of paths take more of a sacral approach. There's rites of passage, coming into adulthood, or baptisms and naming rites. There's communal types of rituals, which, could sometimes be seasonal, sometimes they're not, but there's communal. It's with the people. And that can differ. And if you want to look up in my playlists, I did a video with a good friend of mine, Robert Barton, who did the book The Dance of Oak and Wren, Rites of Driocht. And we talked about the difference in types of clergy, sacramental versus sacrificial. But yeah, there's communal rites, there's fertility rites. There's devotional types of rites where there's pledges and promises and oaths. There's seasonal and agricultural rites, which a lot of the pagan traditions are, very tied to seasonal festivals. There's funerary rites. There's sacrificial rites. There's communion rites. And I would put a slash there with communion, sometimes also communication, because some people get into the traditions where there's some sort of form of possession, or communication via the ancestors or the gods. And that can be done sometimes through different shamanistic type of practices: drums, drugs, dreaming, dance. There's feasting, there's fasting, there's different festivals for that type of stuff. There's purification rites that deal with fire and water. You see a lot of this also, and it's not just like there's a ritual for this, there's a ritual for that. There's these things are like a like an onion with layers, like especially dealing with different types of pagan types of traditions, if you will. That there's all these different layers. Like there's off the top of my head, there's the association with fire and cattle, with Bealtaine, and there's association with um, water and horses at Lunasa. There's sexual rites. Um, some of them deal with marriages, some of them deal with dances and reproduction. Some of the sexual rites are in witchcraft and other branches of, I guess you would say, the umbrella term of paganism. There's political rituals that you see on television that deal with the government. There's political, social rituals that are somewhat tribal. And I guess this is where I would take some time to talk about the structure. I lightly went over the whole concept that if you were an author and how that works if you're writing an intro and whatnot. But what I see oftentimes in pagan world is people on paper, rituals on paper, people reading from paper. And I'm highly against this. While I think that if you're working in a grove, a coven, or you're working in some sort of other type of group, and people have parts, we have to remember that ritual has a flow to it. When you're reading off paper, it's like call and response. You're just reading paper. You're not all there. You're not all in it. You're not feeling it. You're not allowing it to move you properly. Now, if people have parts, why not have a practice? Why not have some sort of proficiency where these people that have parts have their parts memorized? Maybe you want your group to run very structured in such a way that they have to have their parts memorized specifically for a certain way, or maybe that they have their part memorized, but as long as they understand what the part actually means, that ad lib is allowed, because in the heat of the moment, if you will, that there is some sort of inspirational or emotional feeling that comes over you that allows you to just speak poetically or make the words your own at that time. It's the same message, but you're just putting it in your own words, I guess you would say. So instead of saying X, Y, Z, you're saying, X, 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 Y, Z, Z, Q, exclamation point, something. You're not taking more time to say the same thing. You're not making it about you in the middle of ritual, but you're working with the flow of the energy at that time, if that makes any sense. Now, I've often seen these people that work on paper throughout the years. It's kind of like they're following a recipe. They're following a structure where it's plug in and play. It's this happens, and then this happens, and then we do this, and then she says that, and then he picks up this thing, and then they go clockwise here, and then everybody says this, and it's like it's like this. Now, it can be argued that if you went back in time, that's not how it was done. And sure, that's, not necessarily the point, but it is kind of the point. If we're sticking with this idea that ritual is a flow, that if everybody knows these parts or these calls and responses, if you will, or they know what to say when, or in the pagan tradition, it's not uncommon to have your children running around, causing a ruckus, playing in the dirt, and then there's a dog barking, and then this woman's breastfeeding, and then Granny's sitting in the corner and she's knitting something, and it's of the people. it's cultural. They're all there, and everybody has a role. And there's different things happening at the same time. There's a chant going on, and the chant it slowly comes in, and this person's lighting the fire when the chant starts, and then all the people are chanting at the same time, and then the song is moving, and there might be a dance at the same time, and as the chant is getting louder and louder and louder, maybe the musician with his guitar, his harp, starts to play a little slower, and then people pick up on that, and they bring their chant down a little bit. And as the chant's coming down, maybe that's when the druid steps into the middle of the circle and has an invocation or calls upon the gods in a certain way as the chant is still going. And then when he's done, he signals to the sacrifices that they need to come in, and they start circling and doing their thing, and the music might change, and then there's a different chant starts at the same time. There's weaving, there's layers, and it's more like a piece of music, if you will, if you're a composer. In the Gaelic sense of culture and tradition, it was never the druid's job. It was never his or her job to run the rituals. It was to make sure that no mistakes were made in the actual order of events, that order would be brought to chaos if these steps were followed. They would be there to be like, nope, and then redirect, kind of like a composer, in front of an orchestra, or conductor in front of an orchestra, or something like that. So if you happen to work with a group of people in a coven, in a seed group, a grove, or nematon, or try to have some get-togethers where you sit together casually and have everybody learn their parts. Work on memorization, or at least memorizing what the material is saying, so that when it's time to do it, you can just flower at the mouth. You can have a honey tongue. You can work with emotion and inspiration. That there's more feeling involved in doing the ritual when you're off paper. You might have paper available for people that are new, that they can follow along. But they should know that, it might not be word for word verbatim. There's a lot that you miss when you're on paper. I can say at Lodge, as being a Freemason, that everything that we do is memorized. The opening and closing of Lodge is memorized. All ritual work is memorized. And it's done so that there is no room for, I guess you would say, emotional response, or inspirational type of ad-lib. It is what it is, and it's very structured. And it's that way at Lodge for a reason, but I really can't get into that. But to have things memorized, or at least to know your part in such a way, and I know I'm being redundant, but to do it in such a way to where you know your part, what it's supposed to convey, and you've gone over it over and over, maybe you can record yourself doing it and listen to it or watch it, and then you'll know like where your corrections could be, if it has to be structured, or just kind of learn your part. Like, okay, this is the part where I'm talking about the Tuatha De Danann, and they're coming in their ships, have the songs memorized, have your chants memorized, have every person that plays their part makes the ritual run smoothly. And that's why it's good together to get together to have these practices. Because don't forget what ritual was all about in the beginning. It was, a sequence of events that had to run in a proper order. and it had to run smoothly, and there was a flow to it. You're stepping into the stream bed or a current. You picture yourself stepping into a very steady stream of water. You step into it and it's pushing you, right? And you can feel the stream kind of like, oh, it's really, it's to your ankles, then it's to your shins, and then to your knees, and now it's up to your hips, and you can feel the current really pushing you. And the current's pushing you, and the current's pushing you. This is the flow. It's going this way. This is where the cyclical. We go clockwise, we go Jeshile, we go sunwise, we go like a clock, we go around. We turn, right hand ways, and we do so because that's the natural order of the seasons, and that's how a lot of folk customs and traditions are. So if there's this flow and you're stepping into the stream bed, why would you turn this way to fight the current? No. You turn and go with the flow. And that's kind of what ritual is you're going with the flow of the order, the sequence, the set thing. If you were attending Catholic Mass, if you're attending some sort of something with Jewish temple, or if you're at a mosque, or some sort of Buddhist temple or something like that, or you don't break the protocol because it's kind of verboten. It's a no-no. You don't. You're going with the flow. So you can go with the flow a lot better when you're not as structured with this, and this. I might do a follow-up video to this Magic Monday, and I'll just call it maybe Ritual Part 2, and I can go through and dissect maybe a modern Druid ritual versus a more traditional cultural type of a Gaelic pagan ritual. Some sort of reconstructionist type of thing, if you will. So keep your eye out for that in the next couple days. I will try to post a ritual review. And that's what we'll call it, Ritual Review or Ritual Part 2. But yeah, thanks for sticking with me on this Magic Monday, and I hope you enjoyed it. And this is just like a brief intro into what is ritual. When we bring up the word ritual, it obviously sparks some sort of something in our minds, and it's different for everybody. So, yeah, shoot me some comments. When you think of ritual, what do you think of? Hope you guys are well, and I'll chat with you soon. Slán go fóill.